Hi, hello, welcome back. So, I was thinking to myself, and you'll know exactly what this video is about if you have seen the thumbnail, which is kind of impossible to watch a YouTube video without seeing the thumbnail, but maybe you've figured out some way to do it. So, I was thinking to myself recently that I wanted to do another video which was recommending a comic book series to novel readers, specifically novel readers who read the genres that I read, fantasy, science fiction, and I'm also kind of getting really into like the crime thrillers and things like that. So I was racking my brains and trying to think of something that had like a genuine strong fantasy element, because I don't want to just say like, oh well, this book would be great for fantasy readers because the main character has a sword. I want to recommend fantasy stories that are from American comic companies, be they Marvel, DC, Independent, etc. And then I remembered that I had read, finishing actually the month that I started my YouTube channel, I think, where I finished it that month, an amazing fantasy story from DC Comics, written by Tom Taylor, with art and illustration by Yasmine Putri. Yasmine Putri. I'm sorry about the pronunciation there. And that is Dark Knights of Steel. So let me tell you a little bit about the premise for Dark Knights of Steel. So Dark Knights of Steel is essentially an entirely new universe of its own story, and that's not connected to anything at all. Swords and sorcery and superheroes. So I don't know whether you remember if you watched this, I reviewed Wistful Ascending. I tried to say Hyperion Ascending for some reason. I reviewed Wistful Ascending, which was a sci-fi space opera with superheroes in. And I really enjoy when we get these kind of alternative genres where you see superhero stuff. Like one of my favourite Marvel movies is Ant-Man, because that's basically a heist movie with a superhero in it. And I love that sort of thing. It's one of the reasons I think that Brandon Sanderson's books appeal to me, because a lot of people have said that he writes kind of superhero sci-fi and superhero fantasy, where, you know, magical powered characters and things like that. But anyway, what's Dark Knights of Steel about? It is a sword and sorcery version of the DC universe. There are, however, some major changes. So the story of Dark Knights of Steel is essentially that Superman's parents flee Krypton while Superman is still in the womb, and they crash land on Earth, where he's born, and then they kind of go into hiding and raise him, and then eventually they're forced to come out of hiding to protect their local kingdom, because the king there is Thomas Wayne, so the Wayne family, Batman's parents, and the Wayne family are the king and queen of this country, but they're being misadvised by Lex Luthor, who is their is their advisor basically, and Luthor is basically saying like, I'm so smart that this thing that is definitely going to happen isn't going to happen. But Jor-El and Lara, who are Superman's parents, are like, you know, we've already lost one world. They've lost Krypton when it exploded, and they don't want that to happen again to this new world that they've come to, which is this kind of fantasy sword and sorcery Earth. So they save the kingdom, and they become friends with the Waynes, and then when, as always happens with the Waynes, they're murdered, the elves are asked to steward the kingdom until Bruce is old enough to take over. Fast forward to the present day of the story, Bruce and Clark are in their kind of late teens, or maybe early 20s in some cases, and Clark is kind of the prince of the Kal-El. He's got no human name because there's no point in that. They keep their Kryptonian, no super identities. He is the prince of this country, and then there's also the Bruce, who is the Batman, is like basically like a Batman knight. He wears a full suit of armor but with like bat ears. He has a network of spies called Robins, which are all the Robin characters from the books, which is really fun. So if you've got any sort of affinity to Batman and the characters that are Robins, Batman is essentially the main character of this book. And so he's kind of like protecting the El family, the House of El, from the one thing on Earth, on this kind of fantasy Earth, that they are weak to, which is magic. So they can't be killed by conventional weaponry, but magic weaponry, just like Superman in the comics, the regular comics. Even this is also a comic. Just like Superman in the regular comics, the elves are vulnerable to magic. It affects them the same way that it affects any human. So you see a really interesting, you see kind of this really interesting story where Batman is out to protect the elf family who are kind of stewarding his throne, but he also kind of doesn't want it, doesn't feel like he's worthy of the throne. And him and Alfred and the Robins are out there kind of hunting down magical characters. So they hunt down, for example, Black Canary in the first book, and that's a really interesting kind of action sequence. The main story kind of kicks off eventually when a major character is assassinated. And then it stops being about this kind of small scale kind of defending the family in this kingdom, and it starts becoming a truly epic fantasy, you know, with warring nations and alliances and betrayals and politics even. I really like this book. It's only 12 issues, so you can literally read it in a couple of hours. I read it digitally, but there's a physical collected edition available. There's going to be another volume coming at some point, but the first volume is a complete story, and I don't even think it really leaves any threads dangling. I think it pretty much wraps up everything, except for the one thing that is in there, I would say pretty much exclusively as a sequel tease. Now, do you need to know DC Comics to enjoy this series? Absolutely not. If you know the basics, you know who Superman is, Batman is, Wonder Woman, you're probably fine. Wikipedia is your friend when reading comics. So if you say, for example, run across John Constantine, and you don't know who he is, a quick Google on Wikipedia will give you a little summary, and the summary is all you need to know, because their backstories and the history of the characters is completely changed in this book. They make some really interesting changes to Batman. Don't know whether I like or don't like them, but I do. No, I will say I like them actually. They make some interesting changes to Batman that I really liked. Lex Luthor returns in an interesting role that we've never really seen him in before. There's a lot of really, really good story here. And I'm excited for Volume 2 to come out, and I will definitely cover that on the channel when it does. Tom Taylor, who is the writer, is just an excellent comic book writer. He's written so many things that I want to recommend to you guys. For example, he wrote a fantastic 12-issue Suicide Squad series that you really don't, again, need that much continuity for. It's just a fun superhero romp, or supervillain romp, I guess. And it's there, if you want to read more, there is more to read, but that's kind of how superhero comics works. With Dark Knights of Steel, there is more to read as well. There's like a short stories series. I think it's like there's maybe a one shot with 3 stories or 3 single issues. I didn't bother reading those because they aren't written by Tom Taylor, although they are written by fantasy Booktube darling / nemesis, depending on which channel you watch, Jay Kristoff. So Jay Kristoff, who's actually referenced in the book, there's a mountain called Mount Kristoff. There's also a village called Feist. The forest that Poison Ivy lives in is called Hob Forest. So he's Taylor is really wearing his fantasy novel inspirations on his sleeve. And but yes, I haven't read the follow up, or it's a prequel miniseries. I haven't read that yet, although I am interested to. It'd be funny for that to be my first ever Jay Kristoff reading. Is that not, Nevernight or Empire the Vampire, all the stuff that he's famous for? Although I would like to read Empire the Vampire in advance of the sequel, Empire of the Damned, because enough people have said that it's fun that I want to give it a shot. And if I hate it, I'll stop reading it. So, one thing that we can't talk about when we talk about novels is the artwork. And I wanted to show you a few pages. So this is the first cover. This is also by the internal artist, Yasmine Putri. Let me just show you some. It is Yasmine Putri, not Jasmine. So this is a closer look at the art. That's the L family, and that's Kal-El, the Batman, and then that's Harley Quinn and Alfred. Harley Quinn's actually a really interesting character in the book. She ends up being kind of like their court jester, but also the kind of advisor to the king and queen. And this is kind of the initial escape from Krypton, and that's when Lara's giving birth. I'll try and find some really cool artwork. And here's his Superman, his Kal-El, and then the Batman armor there looks great. I really love the design that Yasmine Putri's put together here. It just works. I think it looks fantastic. It's very vibrant. The colours are amazing. There are 2 fill-in artists. So issue 4, which is the backstory of the Batman character, and I want to say issue 7, which is the backstory of another character, are by different artists, and they aren't as good. The second backup artist is still very good. The first one, I think, doesn't really fit all that well with the first, and doesn't ruin the series at all. It's not like when you get an artist change and the artist is completely unreadable, but with how good Yasmine Putri is, it is a bit jarring to be thrust into a different art style, which I don't feel complements her. Who would I recommend this book to? So this comic is 12 issues. Like I said, you can read it in a couple of hours. It's probably about the length of a short novella in terms of the amount of time it takes to read, especially if you kind of sit and absorb a few of the really cool action scenes and images. You don't need to have any knowledge of DC Comics at all. Like I said, just read it, and the characters kind of are the characters. You don't really need to know anything about them. But if you do want that backstory and that history, then Wikipedia, like I said, is your friend. Just look at the basic description of the character. That's all you need to know. It's available digitally and physically. I'm sure the physical edition is great, but I don't buy physical comics anymore. The digital version is great too. I read it on the DC Universe subscription because I pay for that. But you can buy it on Kindle, and it's actually not that expensive, especially considering it's 12 issues of comics. I think it was not like £10 maybe, which is mad because it's a new release as well. So yeah, definitely recommend this one, and I would say check this one out if you are a fantasy fan. If you like kind of the sort of, I would say this is probably comparable to Sanderson stuff. So we're looking at a story that's kind of swords and sorcery with lots of magic being thrown around, but also with really humorous dialogue. There's multiple points in every issue, I think, where I laughed. There's a fantastic joke from Harley Quinn, and I'm not even a big Harley Quinn fan, but there's a really good joke from her. There's a couple of great one-liners from Batman of kind of like his dry, sarcastic humour. So yeah, I would genuinely really recommend this. If you're a Sanderson fan, you'll probably like it. If you are the kind of person who enjoys super grimdark storytelling, this one is a little lighter. There are still very heavy events that happen, and there are some, darker moments. But this is kind of like a T for teen book. So if you are looking for something super adult like Game of Thrones, that's not really here. But yeah, if you are kind of into that like pop fiction, kind of fun, easy breezy genre reads, this is definitely one that you should pay attention to. And like I said, it's not super expensive, and I genuinely would really recommend it. Oftentimes as well, these DC books, if you're not watching this, like the day it comes out or soon to it might be on Kindle Unlimited. A lot of comics are going that way, and if it's not on Kindle Unlimited, it might be on another service. So yeah, I'd recommend give this a couple of hours, and I bet you'll really enjoy it. So, have you read Dark Knights of Steel? Are you interested in reading it now, based on the discussion that we've had here today? Pop something down in the comments and let me know either what you thought of it or whether you're going to read it. And I'd love if you do decide to read it, when you come back and reply to that comment and tell me what you thought. And if you hate it, you hate it. And please feel free to say so. If you have any constructive criticism about this video, anything you think that any inaccuracies for like specifically I've got wrong information, or anything where you think I can improve, please pop that in the comments down below. I welcome all constructive criticism. I love having a chat in the comments, so join the community, subscribe to the channel so that you can be a part of the growth and the fun that we're having here. And this video is going to be the Tuesday video for this week. So Tuesdays are kind of like my non-current reading videos. So normally Mondays I'll do a review or a video about my current reading. Wednesday I do the same. Tuesday I do an off that current reading. Thursday I do my web serials, and Friday is the weekly wrap up. I said rack up, but I meant to say wrap up and recap at the same time. So if you've enjoyed this video, as always, give it a like. If you didn't like it and you got some constructive criticism, let's chat in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel to join the community to see all the upcoming content that I've got planned that I've just talked about, and also please let me know if you read the book and the comic, and I'd love to talk to you about that in the comments. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.